Well, hello there. Good evening. Welcome to another Spitfire session. It's Steve Watts here, ready to introduce you to tonight's panel as together with Spitfire and Shepherd Neame, we continue to put Kent Cricket onto your device. Tonight, I want you to think of a name that is synonymous with Kent Cricket. I want you to think of a name that covers so much of Kent's very rich 150-year history. I think you've got it already. Going to introduce the panel to you in just a moment. But before we get underway, you know that Shepherd Neame and Spitfire are our major partners. They've looked after us with these Spitfire sessions for the last couple of months. And by pure coincidence, today is National Beer Day. So happy National Beer Day. And to celebrate, we're inviting you tonight to raise a glass and join us in lockdown with a cheers to beer. Here it is. I've got my Shepherd Neame Bear Island Pale Ale. I'll have there too. So cheers to this.
Yes.
Let's enjoy a little sip as we get through tonight's Spitfire session. And we also need to say cheers to Sam Billings, our captain, who is celebrating his birthday today. Our continued thanks, of course, to Shepherd Neame for their support. And don't forget that their online shop is currently open. Wide range of products, including mini kegs of Spitfire lager. And hopefully it's not going to be very long now till the boozers are back open again. Now, thank you very much for sending over, as always, your advanced questions. You can get involved while we're chatting. If you have something you want to ask of our panel, we're on Zoom and Facebook Live. Again, it's the comment section on Facebook and the Q&A section on Zoom to get your questions over to us. So as I mentioned just a few moments ago, tonight we are dealing with a family totally connected to Kent Cricket, this year celebrating its 150th anniversary. Delighted to welcome the Cowdreys to tonight's Spitfire session. Firstly, to introduce Chris Cowdrey, the eldest son of Colin Cowdrey. Chris, of course, represented England and Kent, and it was the second father and son combination to captain England. So joining Kent in 1976, Chris captained the club for 6 years from 1985, scored over 12,000 runs, over 200 wickets were taken, and in his first England test against India, Chris dismissed Kapil Dev with only his fourth ball, and that made you, Chris Cowdrey, the 19th English bowler to take a wicket in your first over, and that, Kapil Dev, is no bad scalper. Good evening, Chris Cowdrey. How are you?
Yeah, hi, Steve. Yeah, fine, thanks. Yeah, by the way, it became a world record because not only did I get a wicket in my first over of the Test match, I got a wicket in my first over of one-day internationals, which was Kapil Dev again, caught on the longest boundary you've ever seen at long on. Only bowled 2 overs, I think. Went for a lot, but got him out, and it was a world record.
Was it one of those take 2 overs, take a breather?
Yeah, it's now been beaten by Darren Gough, but it was a world record. Means nothing.
It means a lot. I'd be proud of getting Kapil Dev out. Next up, Graham Cowdrey, who joined Kent and represented them from 84 to 1997. Right-handed batsman, represented England's youth before his county debut, and for more than a decade was a regular, may I say pivotal part of the Kent sides. More than 8,800 first-class runs, 17 centuries, career best of 147, and since retiring, Graham has continued to be involved with cricket, working as a liaison officer for the ECB. We see plenty of you still, Graham. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Steve, great to be with you, and Jeremy and Chris. Happy memories of all those days down at Canterbury and Maidstone and everywhere we used to play. So it's good to be with everyone tonight.
Save some of those stories. We'll have plenty of time to get through them. Completing the lineup, completing the triumvirate of Cowdreys that we have with us this evening is Jeremy Cowdrey, who continues to play an instrumental role behind the scenes at Kent Cricket, a member of the committee, and led the club's 150th year commemorative service at Canterbury Cathedral in March, when we could all get together and didn't have to be 2 meters apart. Jeremy spent his childhood on the Kent grounds, watching his dad play as a life member, and we'll have plenty of memories for us this evening. Hello, Jeremy Cowdrey. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you.
Right, let's crack on to the first of the advanced questions. And Chris, I know when we were talking 10 minutes or so ago, you were very keen to talk about the spell that you have playing together. Let's put the device
Oh,
back up.
did you fall over? You've been on that shepherd knee.
Yeah, it's the beer, it's the pale ale. You were very keen to talk about the time that you and Graham were playing together for Kent, and Jamie got in touch and said, do you remember the highest partnership between the two of you for Kent, or any other memorable partnerships? And do you remember who it was against? Chris, do you remember any memorable ones with Graham?
Well, we had quite a few. I think the ones that we generally had were, I think, in one-day cricket, because they were more, I suppose, match winning at times. We both tended to bat middle order, 4-5 or 5-6, something like that. So we found ourselves quite a lot in a position with, I don't know, 20 overs left, 15 overs left, sometimes less. And there were plenty of time. I can't remember whether we had a particularly big partnership. A smaller one I remember was when Graham made his first 50 at Canterbury there for Kent against Australia. I wasn't much of a partnership though, because I don't think I got any of the other end at all. But yeah, we had a lot of fun batting together, actually.
Is that true, Graham?
Yeah, no, it's funny because of obviously all those one-day partnerships, you know, they tend to be fairly low numbers, but in reflection on the game, they were very important partnerships. And you know, it's whether you're suddenly taking a score from 180 up to 220 that wins the game. And people never really remember those partnerships, but they were very important at the time. I think the most important partnership we ever had, Chris, I don't know or remember, was when we were playing Scotland in the NatWest. And I remember we arrived and the ground there was underwater, and I mean that. And the umpires said, look, we'll give it till lunch. We've got a spare day, so not to worry. And so all the guys were playing snooker and pool and everything. The rain was lashing down. And I just remember about 3 o'clock, the umpires came and said, we're starting. To our absolute disbelief, we lost the toss and we were batting for, hold on, no, we won the toss or whatever. Derek Underwood, I believe, took 8 or 9 for, I can't remember.
On the wettest pitch of all time, yeah.
Oh, I mean, it was ridiculous. Anyway, I just remember going out to bat, joining Chris. I think we were 20 for 5, with really, you know, another 40, 50, 60 to win. And I remember Chris coming up to me and saying, listen, we have got absolutely no chance of winning. But I remember him saying, look, this spinner, I am going to have an absolute dart at him. We'll either win the game or lose it. Thankfully, Chris, you know, had one of his days where he sort of swept them out the ground. And again, that was another little partnership we had, which was not very many, but very important. But they were great times when Chris and I batted. I remember a lot of Sunday League games and B&H games. Great memories.
What about that remarkable partnership at Northants, Sunday League? So I was a weekend off work, last minute, I thought I'll go to Northampton, never been there. And you guys put on something like 130 or something in, and Gray, you made Chris look a bit of a blocker. And you kept losing the ball. Do you remember that? I mean, that was actually one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen.
Yeah, I remember that so well because I thought I was playing quite well. I was knocking it around. I was hitting the odd boundary, and I couldn't understand how the other end, it kept disappearing out the park. So after a while, I stopped looking for these sort of twos and maybe the odd boundary, and I just gave him the strike. And I remember one particular shot. It might have been a full bunger, but it was a full-length ball leg stump. And I've never seen a ball go so far. It hit the top of the football. Do you remember, Gray, those floodlights they had? It was still going up when it hit the floodlights. And all the Northants boys, they were just pissing themselves laughing because they've never seen a shot like it.
Apologies for the language. Apologies. No, you mentioned Northants there. The old days, which half of it was the football pitch. I don't think I ever went there in those days. Just how bad was that outfield, Graham?
I listen. A lot of the grounds around the Midlands, certainly early in my career, Derby, Leicester, Northampton, you know, they were quite hard work because the facilities weren't great. They've got a hell of a lot better, actually, at all of them. But if I'm really honest, I didn't really care. I was just more concerned whether, if it was Northampton, whether Curtly was playing, or whether it be Michael Holding at Derby. You know, I was more concerned about that. But I mean, I think that personally, the changing rooms at Grace Road, which I don't believe have changed to this day, they were awful. Chris?
Well, from the outside, they don't look like they've changed at all. Can I just say that I've been to Northampton several times in recent years. It's quite a nice little ground now. It's really quite tight. I quite like it. It's quite, it's quite homely, can I say?
Yeah, the new stand where the indoor school is, Lynn Wilson, I think, Lynn Wilson stand. That actually, because in my role as a match referee now, I actually spend the days over there looking back, and actually, and they're a very friendly club, Northampton.
Lovely. Jeremy, I want to ask, did the three of you ever play together at any sort of club level or anything like that?
Well, actually, remarkably, we only once played in a game before, and I was working in the city, and one of my clients was the president of Leatherhead, which is near where I live, and they had a centenary match against the President's 11, and he said, "Look, do you think you could bring your brothers along?" And this was in 1999. And he said, "Would you bring your brothers along?" So I rang them up, and they're so good. They always said, "Yeah, of course we'll come along." So I rang my dad up and said, "You should come and you should come and watch. We've never been on a pitch together." And remarkably, he was quite put out, and he said, "Well, I better play. Why don't I play as well?" Now he was 69 at the time, and he'd been pretty unwell, and he hadn't played. What do you think? It was 15 years, something.
More than that, 25 years, I think.
Yeah, ridiculous. Anyway, he came along to Leatherhead, and he played in their centenary game, and in front of probably 200 people, a little mark, maybe 300, a little marquee on the side, and there was just a wonderful stand he had with Graham, and what was remarkable, his technique was so good. I mean, he simply couldn't get out. He couldn't get the ball off the square, but he just couldn't. But he couldn't get out. His technique was so good, and so Graham had to just ping these balls out to keep the run rate going. And then when he finally told the keeper, "Look, I'm going to get stumped next ball," and just left it and walked out, he got this extraordinary standing ovation by 300 people, which was was weird, and believe it or not, he had his stroke 7 days later, and then he died 6 months later. So it was a crazy thing that happened. It was a special day, wasn't it?
So do you put that down to having to bat with Graham?
Yeah.
I just remember during that partnership, much that he was enjoying it. I think it depressed him so much that he just said, I haven't any power to hit it past cover or anything.
Yeah.
Did he still have all the timing, though? Did he still look absolutely wonderful at the crease, even at that age?
But he didn't have the timing. That's what upset him. But he had the technique. But he couldn't miss the ball. He just hit every ball in the middle. He just didn't have the strength. Yeah.
Oh, how lovely. Now, we were mentioning grounds just a moment ago. Well, we were talking about Northampton, weren't we, specifically, and Derby. Chris, you wanted to mention, I know, some of the other grounds that you played at, because, of course, back in the day, it's 70s and 80s, far more grounds were in use than what we see in county cricket today.
Yeah, it's not so much mention them. I just felt that it's pretty. And when you look back to see how many grounds Kent have played on, I don't even know what the answer is. But you go back to Gravesend and all those Blackheath, all those grounds. But when we played, we had some brilliant weeks at Maidstone, Tunbridge Wells. We obviously played at Dartford, but I don't think it was ever a week. Folkestone, we had Folkestone week, Canterbury week. It was really exciting. Often as a player, a lot of players, me for a while as well, didn't like it because you never felt you were quite on your home ground. But once you played for a few years, you sort of got used to playing at these grounds. And I mean, Graham will probably be different to me, but you tend to have your favourite grounds where you did the best. And if I said to people my favourite ground was Folkestone, I think people would be amazed, because it often, Folkestone, it was freezing cold. There were gusty winds coming off the sea, and it was often pretty wet there. But I loved the pitch. It was a turning pitch, and I liked spinning. I liked it when it turned. I got more runs there than I got anywhere else, I think. So, outside Canterbury, Folkestone would have been great for me. And Tunbridge Wells, another exciting, nice place to play. And I know we're still just about playing there still. But Gray, what was your favourite ground?
Well, Folkestone was an important ground for me. That I got my first 100 in one-day cricket there in a Sunday League game.
Hey, hang on. Before you tell that, can I just ask you what over you got in there? I remember it was against Leicester, and I don't reckon you were in before about 30th over.
Yeah, I can't remember, but it was. I just remember it being a howling gale up there, and it was I was still trying to, feel part of that team, and I just remember that being important. But obviously, from my perspective, a bit like you, the moat in Maidstone was important to me. I played for the moat as a club side for a while, but also I was very privileged to have that partnership with Aravinda de Silva against Derbyshire there, and Aravinda, became a dear friend to me. But there was something about Maidstone on a hot Sunday afternoon, full house, that we seemed to get really good crowds there. And, again, the dressing rooms were pretty ancient, but I think if I had, Tunbridge Wells was never kind to me. I never played well there, really. There was that little ridge at the pavilion end that always used to do for me. But I think if I have to pick one of those out grounds, it would be the moat.
Aravinda de Silva, who you mentioned there, Graham, got a really good talk up a couple of weeks ago when we went back to the 1990s. Because it seems strange, doesn't it, that he only actually had one season with Kent, but I guess the impact that he made in that 1 year was huge.
Well, Steve, it's funny to think that, Carl Hooper was with us for, I think, more like 5 years, I think. Aravinda just won, and yet I think for many of the players that I played with, Aravinda was the one who we remember the best. That's not, Carl was a lovely guy, but a very different sort of player. And you were more, with Carl, you wanted him just to bat like he did. He was brilliant and bowl well. You didn't expect to have much dialogue with Carl during the game or after the game. Whereas Aravinda was just, he spoke to anybody, and he was happy to help anybody. And I think he had a hell of an influence on the club just for in 1 year.
Am I right in remembering that the first month or so when he was with Kent, it was really quite chilly and he had about 15 jumpers on, and then the sun came out and he just took off?
Yeah, and one of those first games, it may have been the first, was up at Durham. And it was, I think even the Durham players thought it was a bit chilly. And so Aravinda, I think he was checking the Air Sri Lanka departure times there and then.
Graham looks like he's sort of gone into the mist at Folkestone. Or
yeah. He does, doesn't he?
Can you lean forward, Gray, so we can see you?
I'm forward.
That's
I can see you now.
That's great.
To be fair, Graham, when you logged on, I thought you'd had surgery. You'd taken about 40 years off yourself. Incredible.
Steve, sorry. Point of order. I've just had a text from Matthew Fleming asking how he could ask a question. Do we want a question from Matthew Fleming? We probably do.
No.
This is the first time in my life that I am overruling Matthew Fleming, and I'm in charge of Matthew Fleming, and I'm going to make you wait for your question, Matthew Fleming.
Right.
Because I want to move on to another question, which is from Bob about what form of county cricket have you found the most entertaining over the years? And you can bring this right up to date with T20 if you like. Bob's suggestion, his favourite, was 3-day cricket. Jeremy, you remember 3-day cricket, uncovered pitches. We mentioned Derek Underwood a few moments ago. Derek Underwood on an uncovered pitch, lethal.
Are you asking me or Jay?
Let's start with Jeremy on this one.
When we were young, we were a bit like gypsies, actually. We'd go round from ground to ground to ground, particularly Chris and I, because Graham was a tiny bit younger. And whenever those days happened, and I remember one at Canterbury where there was a massive downpour, it's Yorkshire, and Fred Truman was playing for them. They were right up the top, and there was great pomp to them, and they were going to demolish us. And the rain came, and usually when rain comes, the ground's empty. But with the rain coming, the crowd filled because they knew the sun was coming. A Deadly would come on, and I mean it was unbelievable, wasn't it? And of course, Lottie behind, and the whole thing was theatre because we saw it again and again, and it was absolutely astonishing to watch.
I think to support Bob's question there's no question that when there were uncovered pitches, it was exciting cricket. You definitely got more results. And what happened, the worst decision they made was when they took away uncovered pitches and covered them for 3-day cricket. And then they had a problem because every game had to be contrived. If you wanted a result, you had to chuck the ball up a bit or whatever it was. And then they tried to shorten I remember very early on in my career, they shortened the innings to, I think it was 100 overs, or it might have been even less. 80, at one stage, I think it was 80. First innings could only be 80 because they were trying to contrive a match to get the match moving. And that is why uncovered wickets were so good. You never quite knew what was going to happen from day to day. But the problem with it, I suppose, on the other side of the coin, is that it was a little bit unfortunate for a side who got caught on the old sticky dog, as they used to call it. And we did Surrey nicely. I remember that well. We got, 380 on the flattest pitch of all time at the Oval. And then we had a Sunday league game, beautiful sunny weather. And then it hosed down all night. Sunday night, we had Derek Underwood. We bowled them out twice a day. Thank you very much. Sorry, it was Surrey.
No, you're not. I'm not. You're not. Graham, can I just throw you back then to the 3-day games, as Chris was just alluding to there? These memories used to get some very exciting final days, but it was so contrived, as Chris was saying, the unedifying spectacle before lunch of someone bowling full tosses and long hops just so that someone could set a target. Perhaps it was more entertaining. How many of the results were the right way?
Yeah, I mean, I do look back then, and actually, you know, a lot of the batsmen particularly resented the fact when they saw some guy who'd never got beyond 20 suddenly get 90 not out or something, you know, but having been handed them. And actually, it did cause a lot of issues between different counties because, you know, there are various clubs who weren't prepared to, you know, make a game of it. It wasn't their fault particularly. You know, Chris would have come back into our dressing room probably quite a few times, said they don't want a game. They're not interested in the game. And, you know, it is much better now. You can actually see a game through naturally. But you know, as Chris said, there's something quite remarkable. My first few years, I was short leg. Obviously, I'm short leg, the new guy on the block with Derek Underwood and Alan Knott. You know, that's a memory that no one will forget, you know. Funny enough, Chris, someone asked me the other day about did I ever see any batsman particularly take Deadly on successfully? And the only time I really remember is Gordon Greenwich at Folkestone, funny enough. He just seemed to sweep every ball somewhere past one of my ears. Yeah. Got 100. It was the most remarkable batting I'd ever seen.
I think I agree. He'd be up very high on my list. I was fielding at short leg before you arrived under the captaincy of Asif. And Gordon Greenwich was 94 not out on a belter at Bournemouth. Underwood about to bowl. And he said, hang on, change the field. And he put me in at short leg, having not been there before. No shin pads or anything then. And I'm not even sure I had a helmet then. In fact, I didn't have a helmet. That's how far back it was. And he just swept it over the pavilion. Straight over my head, straight over the pavilion, 6 for his 100. Unbelievable. I'll tell you another two people who played deadly well, especially when they were batting together, is Radley and Gatting. Clive Radley and Mike Gatting. Gat was a wonderful player of spin, got down the pitch to him, which not many people did. And Radley just sat down the pitch, you know, knocking him around for ones and twos, trying not to let Deadly settle. But Deadly won a few times as well.
Asif Iqbal, who you just mentioned there, Chris, as part of Richard's question here, he says, I think Alan Knott and Asif would have enjoyed T20 cricket. Would you have enjoyed playing it, Chris? Would you like to have been involved in a bit of T20?
Yeah, it was up my street, to be honest. I love fielding. Like Graham, we just adored fielding, and which is half the battle. I thought I could bowl better than anyone else thought I could bowl, which was nice. So I'd get a couple of overs in here and there, and I enjoyed improvising as a batsman. It would have suited me perfectly. And it's an interesting question. Alan Knott, definitely. I mean, he as a keeper, there's no doubt. But whether he's batting as a younger man, his batting would have been free because he hits the ball wherever the fielders are, which is, I suppose, is the art of batting. And Asif, I think, of course, would have been a freak player. And if you look back over the years at the sort of players that might have been picked for the all-time Kent T20 11, I know it's difficult comparing eras, impossible, but I'll tell you what, there's one person who I would pick first before any of them. Maybe Asif, okay, maybe, but that's Graham Cowdrey, because he was the most devastating striker of the ball and turned a match in 4 overs. And there'll be a few since, I know, a few players with these modern bats or whatever said, don't be ridiculous. What about Rob Key? What about him? What about him? And that's okay. But I would have got Graham in number 3 in my all-time T20 11.
Well, there you are, Graham. How much would you have been worth in the IPL if it was around in those days?
Oh, Steve, about, I think, 20 million. I mean, it's amazing.
I think so. A memory's just come to me, Graham, actually. I think it's the 95 B&H final. I don't think you're allowed to say B&H anymore, but you were in those days. Kent, Lancashire.
Yeah.
I was sitting pretty much square on, maybe mid-wicket.
Oh.
You've getting the big stride in. David Shepherd, finger up like that. I don't think the ball didn't hit your pad and the finger came up. That still rankles with me. Where are we? 25 years on, that still rankles with me now because I was there. I was sitting square on. I could see how far down the pitch your leg was.
Steve, when I see you when cricket returns in a few months' time, we can have a beer about that because it shouldn't rankle with me anymore, but it does. Because funny enough, having, they got too many on that day anyway, but Aravinda was just beginning to knock it around. That's right, wasn't it? And I can't remember the name of the Lancashire spinner, but that particular year I'd been sweeping so well. And I remember Aravinda coming up to me and saying, no big shots, just play it round. And I went, yeah, no problem, Harry, no problem. And of course, the next ball, I looked to hit him out of St. John's Wood. And I was, funny enough, you look back through your career, you can't be worried about decisions that went your way or against you. But that is the one decision I look back on and say, that just could have been one of the greatest days, of your life.
Gary Yates? Was it Gary Yates?
Gary Yates,
yeah.
Good memory, yeah.
Gary Yates, just trying to remember back to that Lancashire side, actually, was a really good one-day side in particular, wasn't it? Did they have Wazim Akram then?
Dave
Mike
Fulton
Atherton
out with the white hat, yeah. And
yes,
that was the game where you'll remember where I think Martin McKay bowled Atherton a bouncer first over, I think. And it went down to Aravinda, who was down at fine leg. But Aravinda was talking away to his friends in the stand there. He had no idea what was going on, never got near the ball. The game could have changed with that one ball.
There's one image in particular, apart from that LBW, we're going to gloss over that, of yours. Ian Austin. Remember Ian Austin? I'm sure he was playing in that final.
Very well.
Now, I don't think I ever played, even in club cricket, against someone of that sort of build. I mean, quite incredible, really. But he was a very effective player, wasn't he, Ian Austin?
He was, he was a damn good player, Austin. And he would have been playing that final, wouldn't he? Yeah, I'm sure he would have done.
I'm sure he was. Yeah, I'm sure he was. He probably had a big money contract in the IPL as well.
Are you suggesting he was a bit on the large side? Is that your point? Because he was a bit tubby.
Well, he wasn't very tall, was he? I think that's more to.
Okay.
I'm trying to be nice here.
You wait till you see this West Indian fella bowl for the West Indies in a test match in a few weeks. I've forgotten his name.
Yeah, I've heard about this though. I know what you're talking about here. I look forward to seeing this. In fact, I think I may have seen.
He must be 22 stone. He watch him bowl his off spin. It's fantastic.
It's only off spin that people of that size can bowl, you know. Jeremy, you're a big fan of the T20. Did you like all formats? Did you used to like the 3-day game?
Yeah, I loved them all. I mean, I just love them all. I just love the experience of. I mean, I used to love playing, and as a player, I would have been more a T20er. But having now come back and watching more, being on the committee, strangely, I think I enjoy the 4-day games most, because you've got time, you walk around the ground, you chat to people. So honestly, I just love the whole experience, whether it's a 4-day or, you know, that last year, I think when we had a sold out against Surrey at Canterbury under the lights, I mean, it was fantastic. You know, the atmosphere is incredible. So I don't really mind. I love it all. Yeah, always have. Love watching.
Yeah, I'm with you there. People think I'm a bit strange these days. Well, how could you like cricket and how can you like T20? But I just love watching a game of cricket. But people think that's a bit odd these days. Don't know why they think that, but they do. Question that came in from Ed Pickard while we've been talking here. Thank you for getting in touch, Ed. Who is the best captain that you ever played under? Obviously for you, Graham, it was Chris. But who else particularly was a particularly striking captain for you?
Oh, well, in my career, obviously, I was very, very close friends with Steve Marsh for a long time in my career. I played just a very small amount of time with Marshy. You know, I had a lot of time for Mark Benson. Wish we could have won more with that team. We got too many finals, and you know, we were up the league in the Sunday League for a long time and never quite crossed the line until we did win it finally. I enjoyed playing for all of those. I enjoyed working with Chris Tavare, and then obviously, you know, I'd love to have won something with Chris if we could have done, and we just missed out on the championship one year, 88 or whenever it was. I can't remember if that was Chris or Chris Tavare, but you know, all those 1 day, you know, I felt for a long period of time, we were rightful favourites to win one of those 1 day tournaments every year, and we just missed out too many times. Now, whether that was a lack of belief in the end, or maybe we weren't quite as good as I thought we were, but one thing I do know is that, you know, a lot of other counties did not want to play against Kent in 1 day cricket for a long period. We had a really good lot of players, and I sometimes look back and you think of players like Trevor Ward. You know, Wardy on a hot Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. the first ball goes flying into the boundary. I mean, he was an incredible player. I just wish we could have got on a run a bit like Gloucestershire did more recently and Warwickshire did, where I think we probably should have been on one of those runs and we could have won 4 or 5.
Steve, could I answer that question as well?
Sure.
The best captain I played under, because it was actually Chris Tavare, because I know everyone thinks I never came on a pitch, first class pitch, but I was down watching the 4th day of Kent v Somerset at Canterbury, and early in the morning I bumped into Alan Elam, who was coaching, and said, are you on for some fielding later? And I went, oh yeah, I'm good for fielding. Thought he was a joke. And I was actually in the Colin Cowdreys stand having lunch with my mother, and I'd literally gone like that with the beer, so I'd half drunk, and he came in and he said, right, you're on, they're declaring in a minute. And I hadn't realised he was serious. So I'd had this enormous steak and kidney pudding and a pint, and I had to run over to the pavilion because Somerset, for some reason, they didn't have a 12th man, and then someone had broken down, and we said, yeah, we'll provide a fielder. So anyway, I ran on, I got given some clothes and stuff, ran on with them behind Chris Tavare, who obviously we knew through Ken. And I mean, I've got to tell you, it was a great experience. Anyone who can wangle it, as a non-cricketer should do, is remarkable. And Chris Tavare was so wonderful with me because he treated me like I was one of the actual pros. He didn't patronise me. Neil Burns behind the stumps was lovely, and it was a great run chase, actually. You guys remember, and I must have done okay, because halfway through the run chase, I was put at cover, and Graham came into bat, and you might remember he did this sort of flash cut that, you know, if you're stupid enough to get in the way of, you're pretty well killed. And I just thought, if I get a catch here, it's a nightmare, you know, or a steepling skier and all that sort of stuff. But it's a hell of a thrill. But what I will say actually is, it's quite easy fielding at the Spitfire ground with that outfield, you know, because when you're used to club cricket, you go down to the ball, it hits you in the face.
Yeah.
Hand down, and it just. And the other thing that really surprised me, Mark Benson was opening. First over, I was at mid-on, I think, and he just dead batted it. And I was mid-on, I went to pick it up, and actually I could feel the punch of the ball, you know. So they just hit it so hard, these guys, you know. So it was a hell of a thrill. It was a draw in the end, but I was most excited by when you get in the huddle after a wicket, when both Chris and Graham came down the steps. There was trepidation in the Somerset team, and they went, "Come on, guys, got it." And I was really chuffed with that, you know.
Did you get paid?
I did not get paid. No, I kept my amateur status.
Can I just say that what you mentioned there about anyone who's played club cricket gets the chance to walk onto an outfield, like you say at Canterbury, or especially if you get the chance to walk onto the outfield at Lord's, my goodness, made the difference. If you're used to club cricket, or indeed Northampton in the old days, and you get to walk on Lord, my goodness, better than my carpet here, and it's only a year old. That's terrific. Can I just say, Jeremy, by the way, that's one of the greatest stories I've ever heard. Jeremy Cowdrey, was sitting in a stand named after my father, about to have lunch with my mother. Do you know how few people in the world can say that?
I know, it's quite good, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't think either I know Matthew Fleming's very well related, but I don't think he'll be able to top that. Chris, talking about captains, Jeremy just gave a good mention to Chris Tavray there. Anyone else particularly?
Difficult. I played under quite a few. Kent. Asif was always. I loved playing for Asif because we held him in such great aura. You know, this was this fantastic player, and to be honest, whatever he said, you just did it. If he said go and wash my car, you go and wash his car. We just loved him. We just admired him so much, and there were times when he was an exciting captain. He wanted to win every day. He didn't want to draw, hated draws, and sometimes we didn't see him for the whole match. I remember first day at Sheffield, he batted quite nicely, got a few runs, and I'm not sure we saw him again for the rest of the match. The second day, he didn't turn up, and he was the captain. And we eventually rang up this. We got a phone call through to the dressing room saying it was an AA man on the M1, and he'd broken down. And we thought, he kind of broke. Where's he been? And he apparently had to go to London for a meeting. And so we got off the phone and says, "What's this story here? What's this story?" And he was going, "Oh, I am from the AA," and in this Pakistan voice of Asif's. And he never reappeared for the rest of the game. Had a bit of a neck problem. But what a lovely bloke. Ely, another one who loved to win, Alan Elam. You know, there was lots of them. Great fun, guys.
That Kent side that you came into when you were making your debut, of course, was so successful. So many legendary names. You mentioned a couple there. You must have learned an awful lot very quickly. Was it actually a little bit daunting, maybe?
It was daunting, I suppose, walking into a dressing room where the other 10, if I'd been picked for a game, the other 10 had all played with my father. Most of them, I think, possibly all of them, had played under his captaincy. 8 or 9 of them would have been internationals, maybe on occasions 10, and there was me. So daunting, yeah, a little bit of pressure, a little bit of, it's a funny feeling. You don't necessarily feel you've got much to offer. You're coming in down the order, 7 or 8 or something, probably not going to get a bowl, so you're really playing as a bit of a fielder, learning your way. But I loved it. I enjoyed every day. I have no regrets, to be honest, about anything that happened and playing for Kent at all.
Well, that's terrific. No point in regrets, is there? They don't achieve anything regrets.
No, I will give you one. I will give you one regret.
Oh.
Because when I said I've got none, I have got one. And I know you're going to ask
Not
me.
sitting here now, is it?
You've told me you're going to ask me, so I'm going to get in before you do. I have a regret, the way that Jay, being a committee man, his ears need to stick up a bit now. I have a regret about the way that Chris Tavray was removed as captain. And I was appointed when he was taken out. We just got to a cup final, where I think we lost off the last ball. We'd had a decent season. And I remember going to Australia and getting a phone call from the committee saying, would you captain next year? I said, well, where's Tav gone? And they said, no, he's not going to be captain next year. I said, well, why not? They said, well, it doesn't matter why not. He's not going to be captain. Would you captain? And I had to say, well, I'm going to have to think about this. I don't really understand. And in the end, they said, if you don't captain, someone else will captain because we've taken him out. And I never, ever found out the reason. And for 2 years of me being captain, I found it very, very difficult, with people feeling there was some sort of conspiracy against Chris Tavray. If there was, I knew nothing about it. So that was my only regret, that it split our dressing room. And for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, it wasn't a lot of fun with that atmosphere. So that's the only regret I had. I enjoyed every other minute.
Weren't you quite youngish as a captain, especially for those days when you took over?
No, I don't think so. No, I think I was probably 26, 27. I don't think so. I think if you're someone who likes captaining, you tend to find in a team, there are probably only 1 or 2 people who genuinely would like to do the job. You probably got another 1 or 2 who could do the job if they were persuaded to. So, yeah, I was always keen to do it. I've always captained, and I just enjoy it. So.
Okay, well, thank you for getting that off your chest. Your one and only regret. That we all know now about Chris Cowdreys' one and only regret. You will not be surprised to learn, gentlemen, that a whole host of the advanced questions were varying themes about your father. That's no surprise there. There were many that we could choose from. But did anyone feel any extra pressure, such as the status of your father and everything that he'd achieved in the game, and the name that he had and still has to this day? Graham?
Yeah, without question, I've felt that pressure throughout my career. And if I had my time again, it seems a very strange thing to say on something as on the Spitfire sessions at Kent. But I think if I had my time again, I would probably have tried to move counties before my career sort of set off, just to get away from the history of what Dad had achieved, and then obviously Chris had followed on with. You know, and I look back and I think probably the biggest effect it had is that the comparisons between the way he batted, and he was obviously, you know, a beautiful batsman to watch. Chris then broke the mold slightly because of the way he played. And then I suddenly was blooded in Sunday League games, playing some horrendous swipes across the line and trying to just get used to people saying, well, God, his father never played like that. And actually, one thing I just wish I had done is just got into my own mind and been at peace with myself about, I'm not going to even begin to play like him or even try, or indeed, I'm not going to try and play like Chris. I'm going to play like, this is the way I'm going to play. Funny enough, it was I remember at Northampton, I went out to bat, and it was typical sort of these things that happen to you. Nick Cook, dear old Nick Cook, now an umpire, England spinner. I walked out and he went, bloody hell, he said, Kirtley is bowling quick today. Oh, no. Nick was fielding at mid-on. And I said, oh, crikey, I'm going to try and stay this end. And of course, as soon as you engage with Nick, Nick then said, hold on a minute, Cow. He said, yeah, Kirtley, Graham's just saying you've halved in pace this year. You know, and so that all started. But actually, I don't know why on that particular day, it was a championship game. I just engaged, you know, myself into saying, right, if the ball is there, I'm going to hit it. Not particularly from Kirtley, but from the other bowlers. And actually, I just remember at the end of the day, and I had a drink with Nick, and he said, stop wasting your time, you know, trying to play differently in championship cricket. He said, just play like you played today. And you know, if I have a regret, and I don't have any regrets particularly, but I just wish I had almost tried to not erase Dad from my life, but erase the way he played and the way that people spoke to me about him, and just said, great, wonderful, and I love hearing all about it, but actually I play this way. And so that was, in terms of comparisons, I found them very boring for the majority of my career, and then you come to terms with it in the end. And you get people saying, well, you're not as good as your dad. Well, you sort of say, I could have told you that 20 years ago.
That's going to happen, isn't it? It doesn't matter how successful you are. People are always going to say that. But you genuinely feel that you wished you had moved counties before your career took off. Did you think that at the time, or is it something in retrospect that's come to you?
Steve, I had one opportunity, and it was during an opportunity, a winter time, Middlesex. Keith Brown, who was a good player, good batsman and keeper. There was an opportunity, I think, that Keith may have gone to Glamorgan during the winter. And I pretty well got the 24 hours. Look, it looks like he's signed, and we'll take you on. And that's when I was a young, early 20s. As it was, the deal didn't go through for Keith, so it didn't go through for me. Listen, as I get very old now, I do sometimes wonder. I wonder how I'd have done under different coaches and a different way of playing at Middlesex or wherever else. So yeah, I think without question, and even getting away from playing, people think it's very easy when your brother is the captain of the club. I was in a situation whereby pretty well every week I knew I was either going to play or be 12th man, and it was whether it was going to be a Turner or it was going to Seamer. And the amount of times I saw Chris coming over to me at sort of 25 to 11, and there was almost no point in coming over in the end I felt a bit sorry for Chris. You don't have to just say you're 12th man, that's fine. Because actually, if you look at my career record, I played very few games really from a championship point of view. That's I just wish I could have played more championship cricket. But having said that, at the time, I didn't deserve to. I wasn't getting the runs.
Steve, I think it's hard to for people to sort of understand the mind games that go on in an individual when I just played amateur friendly stuff, but even at that level, people were excited to get me out, and certainly at school I was opening the batting with a guy who just seemed to get 100 every week, and yet each week when I got out single figures, when my wicket went down, the whole place went mad, and I would even have people coming up asking me to sign the score card, score book, because they'd got me out. And it takes a steely person to just let that all just pass you by. So I often used to think I was pretty lucky to have dodged the gene, actually, so I didn't have to try and earn a living. I mean, I don't know how these guys did it, actually.
Having said that, Jeremy, there's some good mentions coming in here of your career in Surrey cricket, in Surrey League cricket. So you don't need to be too harsh on yourself. Some people remember it fondly.
Yeah,
playing in Surrey. Chris Graham's, well, he's really opened up on us there about the pressure that he felt because of the family name and your father's reputation. Did you feel anything similar?
Yeah, it's a question we've been asked for 25 years probably. Is it an advantage or a disadvantage to be following a famous father? And I think if we were being honest, we'd say it was a disadvantage. The advantage you get is as a young kid, you get recognised because they know who you are. So if you do well, I'm not so sure I would have got a contract that easily when I started. I got 0-1 in the second 11. I didn't get any really runs for a while, and then I got a 2-year contract. And so, I think there are advantages, but generally at the end of the day, it is hard when you go to these grounds. Graham will know this, and you're having a practice. We're much more accessible than footballers. You don't go up to Manchester United and have a chat with Rashford or whoever it is before the game while he's practicing. Whereas in cricket they did. Sometimes they fielded the ball and gave you the ball back in practice. And before every single day's play, particularly away from home, somebody would come up and say, "Oh, I saw your old man play on. He got 170. You know, and the next ground, he got 180 here back in. You know, he's the best player I ever saw." And we get that every day, which actually, when you're having a bad run in particular, does put you under just that little bit of pressure. And interesting what Graham says about Middlesex. I did hear that from him a few years ago. But I got asked to go to Derby. And I'd only been at Kent 2 years. And I got offered this contract at Derby. And I said to my old man, what do I do here? He said, "We don't leave Kent." "Surely not thinking of leaving Kent." I said, "No, I don't. But I mean, it's interesting that someone..." He said, "In that case, go meet them, but I'm sure you won't want to go to Derby." So I remember going up there on a train, and they had the whole of the Kent team listed in front of me. I thought, "That's funny. Isn't that the team I play for?" And he said, "There's the team." They said, "And which place do you think you're going to get there in the next 5 years?" And they were all internationals, so they were making fair point. Eddie Barlow was captain, and Eddie came to meet me, and he said, how long a contract do you want?" In his South African accent, "How long a contract?" So I haven't really thought about it. I don't even know whether I'm definitely... "Yes, you're definitely going to come." He said, 5 years. You have 5-year contract, and you'll be guaranteed the captaincy in 4 years. So I got back on the train on the way back, and I mean, hardly made a run for the first team. I didn't know what they were signing me for particularly, and you know, it was a difficult one because, as Graham says, and Fabian probably would have been in the same boat. He might have done better had he gone somewhere else and been his own man. So it's always a difficult one.
Jeremy, just to come back on the point we were making about you and the Surrey League, it was Edgy who got in touch and said Jeremy was potentially a better leg spinner than Mushtaq Ahmed. Why was this not recognised in the Surrey League? Obviously, Edgy remembers it very well.
I mean, in the Surrey Hills, it's quite blowy, and I used to get a lot of air, and it's just unlucky. It was conditions, Steve. You know, I think I was a better bowler, but maybe the stats just don't back me up. You know?
He couldn't bowl in those old indoor nets because the ball kept landing on the net.
Oh, he hit the top, yeah.
Yeah, hit the top.
You
Yeah.
put that much air on it? Did you really give it that much air?
I just couldn't get them down. They used to call me the Grenadier, but if I pitched it, it was quite good. But you know, especially against.
I used to have that problem. I used to have this problem. I used to bowl off spinners, and actually for a while I was fairly decent, and then they stopped turning because they stopped landing on the pitch, and that was it. You know, like they say, darts players get the yips. I definitely got that play. Jeremy, the 150th year anniversary that we're kind of celebrating with no cricket, which is really weird. How special a day was the service at Canterbury Cathedral, which you were very much a part of?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was as good a day as we could possibly have hoped. We filled the cathedral, and what we were trying to do all along was not just to be all about history and go back 100 years, but be about the present players, the men's team, the women's team, and look to the future. So, you know, and the point we hopefully got across in the service is this whole 150 years, you know, if you picked players from any of those times and put them, like the wonderful illustration that's been done for the celebrations, you could imagine players from different eras just slotting in teams and enjoying, and so it was a great day. We had a brilliant help from King's Canterbury with the choir, and it was a great day, I think. And I mean, who'd have thought that it's been the only action so far, you know, and hopefully August we'll get some play, but it might be the only bit of action we'll have with the crowd, you know, the whole year. So
yes, I'm kind of hoping if this distancing they're talking about gets reduced, that at some point before, you know, the end of the season, we can get some crowds in, at least if we get T20. And please, got to have something going on. Are there any plans underway to make it a very special 151st, as this year's been very odd?
Yeah, very much so. So we had all sorts of things planned for this year, and we're just going to celebrate. If you know, the various things that we can't do this year, we're literally going to just do them next year, and just carry on the celebration. Yeah,
fabulous. We'll have a 2-year, but knees up then. That'd be terrific. We're going to get on to tonight's star question in just a moment, which has been sent in by Sarah, who wins the prize courtesy of Spitfire. Just before that, Jeremy, you got any idea what that question was from Matthew Fleming? Can you remember it?
Yeah, I'd cut him off. He was beginning to irritate me, actually. I can't. Actually, I'll tell you what it was. It was actually, why is the best fielder in the family not on the screen? And I think he's alluding to Carol, my sister, and Graham is at his at Carol's house, and she probably is the finest. I mean, she does this remarkable slip catching sessions on beaches. So if persuaded, if the money's right, I'm sure she could squeeze in next to Graham there. But that was the question: why is the best fielder not there? And the answer is Carol. So maybe at the end she might do a little cameo.
All right, well, Graham, you've got about 4 minutes to get involved here while we deal with the star question sent in by Sarah, which is for all of you, what are your most treasured pieces of memorabilia? Sarah's gone about hers. Who's got a really fantastic bit of memorabilia that they really treasure? Chris, what have you got?
Difficult one, that. I kept a bat for a long time that I got runs with as a youngster, old Duncan Fernley bat, and I wrote all the scores down on the back of the bat, the good scores. Didn't write the noughts and the ones and twos. I wrote the good scores I'd made with that bat because it just cracked down the middle and it had gone. And I kept that for a long, long time, and then I lost it. I was really upset about it, actually. I lost the bat, and that was it. I suppose the only thing I do have, now you've asked, I have an England cap. Well, I have one. I only have one because I only played one game. And I had the England cap, which I'm proud of because the game didn't go well, but at least I played. And unfortunately, the moths have spent more time in the cap than I did. And you can, there's nothing, there's sort of chunks taken out of both sides at the front. You can just about see the lions still, which is okay. But that would be one of my most favourite pieces of memorabilia, or at least it was.
Was that the, was it 1988, that crazy summer of all those captains of which you were one, and also that crazy summer of Kent missing out in the championship? Was it by 1 point, wasn't it? Very straight. We haven't even had time to cover it, but what a crazy time.
Yeah, we lost by 1. That was a very sad year, but great fun. We really enjoyed it. We played well and deserved to win it.
Absolutely, amen to that. Graham, you got a favourite piece of memorabilia?
I have very few pieces of anything. I'm sure, like lots of old sportsmen, you have to at times just say, look, I've got to get rid of this stuff. It's just going to sit here. But I do have a signed photo. It's a very typical scene of a scoreboard with the numbers up there, and I've got a signed photograph to me from Aravinda De Silva of our partnership at Maidstone, which that is a very special memory. But
how big was it again? Was it 400 and something, wasn't it?
No, it was 360 something. And then a few years ago, the young Beckenham, the young lads at Beckenham went and beat it.
Oh yeah.
I haven't spoken to them since. Whenever.
Now, Jeremy,
that's all I've got, Steve.
Okay, well, that's good. No, if I had something from Aravinda, I'd be treasuring that. Jeremy, you get to sit in the committee room all the time, where the rank and file, and like somebody not permitted. You must look at memorabilia all the time. What's in your own personal collection that you love?
Well, there's a couple of things, actually. One, we've each actually all got on a MCC touring blazer of our fathers, which is a beautiful thing.
Oh, great.
Also, I think in 1962, when he scored his highest score, 307, some amazing person from Wales, because MCC is a Welsh number plate. Someone rang him, wrote to him and said, my number plate's MCC 307, which was his initials and now his highest score, and just said, would you like to swap? No money or anything like that. So we all slightly coveted that. And when my sister was for her 40th. We thought we all wanted, so we gave it to her for her 40th. So she's always had this on her car. And I've just had a significant birthday, and lo and behold, she did the paperwork, and she said, I've had this for a few years now, I think it's your turn. So out in the drive here, I've got my car with the MCC 307 number plate, which would be lovely to when we finally get to, drive into the Spitfire. It's going to, in fact, we need to get Carol in there, Graham, just because it was such a lovely appearance. It was an amazing gesture, and it's a lovely thing,
When I turn 80, will you give it to me for my moped?
Indeed, there she is.
Oh, look, here's the number one fielder in the Cowdreys family. Hello,
Steve. This is the finest fielder in the family.
Hi, Steve.
Hello, Carol. How are you?
I got offers from Derby and Middlesex.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
But you turned them down. You didn't want to go there. No, you turned them down. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't like travelling.
Well, listen, our time is up. I have to say, we've had some great stories and wonderful entertainment. But the best thing that's happened on any of these Spitfire sessions in the last 2 or 3 months has just happened there. And Graham Cowdrey has returned just in time to say goodbye. So thank you very much to all of our panel. Don't forget, everyone, cheers, that it is National Beer Day. So beer up in lockdown here. We're allowed tonight, even though it's a Monday. It would be a school night, but I haven't got any work to go and do. So don't forget that Shepherd Neame's website is much up and running. Kegs of Spitfire available there. So do go log on to Shepherd Neame, our fabulous partners who are looking after us on these Spitfire sessions, of which there'll be another next week. More details will appear on Kent's social media channels and on the website, kentcricket.co.uk. But in the meantime, our thanks to all of you for watching, sending your questions in, and our thanks to Chris Cowdrey. Chris, great to have you with us. What are you up to during this lockdown? Are you busy?
Busy like everybody else, doing very little. And the worst of all, though, is that we're talking about Beer Day. What was it? National Beer Day, isn't it? Shepherd Neame Day. Yeah. Unfortunately, I've had a few months off the booze because I got pancreatitis, and I was told I couldn't drink for 6 months. So this is what I've been drinking here before people ring me up and say, we saw you. I'm not back on the Shepherd Neame for another 4 weeks.
So what is it then?
Non-alcoholic. I'm not telling you the brand. It's non-alcoholic. I won't tell you, but it will be Shepherd Neame again in a month.
Non-alcoholic beer, decaffeinated coffee. What's the point? Graham Cowdrey, thank you very much for being with us tonight. We're having a beer by all accounts. Next time I see you at the Spitfire ground, you're going to tell me about 1995 and Lords, you say?
Look forward to, and I'm now, I've worked for the ECB for 6 years now as a match referee, and like the players, like all the supporters, you're just desperate to get going again. So cross fingers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 6-7 weeks. Hopefully we'll be back, and we'll be seeing Jeremy as well, hanging around in the committee room. I'll say hello to you.
Get straight up there.
No, I'm not allowed. I'm going to say hello to you through the window, or maybe through the door, because I'm not allowed. I'm just rank and file.
No, we'd like to see you there. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyway, Jeremy, many thanks for joining us. I can't wait to see you at a Kent match. Hopefully it's not going to be too long now. Graham, look forward to seeing you. And Chris, we hope to bump into you sometime soon as well. Thank you to all of the Cowdrey clan for being here, especially Carol tonight. And there'll be another Spitfire session for you next week.
Thanks, Steve.
Cheers.